All right, shalom. I wanted to share. I said I was going to share about the high priest and how things got switched around and things of that nature. So I'm just going to share it real quick. Uh, and later I'll go back into Abraham. There's a fly in here. Abraham. Um, I'll share that later. But I'm in the Antiquities of the Jews. Um, chapter 20. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Book 20, chapter 10, paragraph 1, first paragraph. And it says, the enumeration of the high priest. It's important that you know about this. All right. Um, how the um, high priesthood was translated from family to another. All right. And there's other uh, notes that you can follow, but I'm going to share it. And then I'll go back to the index and I'll give you the little references there. But I want you to hear this. All right, so it says, and now I think it proper, it's a good time, even today, and agreeable to this history, to give an account, a record of our high priests, how they began, and whose those are which are capable of that dignity, and how many of them there had been at the end of the war. In the first place, therefore, history informs us that Aaron, the brother of Moses, officiated to the Most High God as a high priest, and that after his death, his son succeeded him immediately, and that this dignity have been continued down from them all to their prosperity, their children. Whence it is a custom of our country, we talk about the Israelites, that no one should take the high priesthood of the Most High Yah, but he who is of the blood of Aaron. He who is of the blood of Aaron. Or everyone that is of another stock, though he were a king, can never obtain that high priesthood. Accordingly, the number of all the high priests from Aaron, of whom we have spoken already, as of the first of them, until Phanes, who was made high priest during the war by the seditious, the revolters, was 83, of whom 13 officiated as high priests in the wilderness, and from the days of Moses, and while the tabernacle was standing until the people came into Judea, when King Solomon erected the temple of the Most High. For at first they held the high priesthood till the end of their life. For first they held the high priesthood until what? The end of their life. Although afterward they had successors, those that take their position, while they were alive. Now these 13, who were the descendants, the children of two of the sons of Aaron, received this dignity. They received this honor by succession, one after another. For their form of government was an aristocracy, and after that a monarchy, and in the third place the government was regal. Now, the number of years during the rule of these 13, from the day when our forefathers left, it says, departed out of Egypt, bondage, slavery, under Moshe, their leader, until the building of that temple which King Solomon erected at Jerusalem, were 612. After those 13 high priests, 18 took the high priesthood at Jerusalem, one in succession to another, after another, from the days of King Solomon until Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, made an expedition. He made a war against that city and burnt the temple and removed our nation into Babylon, confusion, and then took Josedek, the high priest, captive as a slave. The times of these high priests were 466 years, 6 months, and 10 days, while the Jews were still under the regal government, but after the term of 70 years captivity under the Babylonians. Cyrus, king of Persia, that means called the Jews from Babylon, to their own land again, and gave them leave, allowance to rebuild their temple, at which time Jesus, the son of Josedek, took the high priesthood over the captives, the slaves, when they returned home. Now he and his posterity, his children, who were in all 15 unto King Antiochus Epictor, were under a democratical government. Wicked. For 414 years, Israel. Then the aforementioned Antiochus and Lysias, the general of his army, deprived Onias, who was also called Menelaus, Onias, of the high priesthood, and slew him. They killed him at Berea. And driving away the son of Onias the third, put Joachimus into the high priest's place. He put him in position, one that was indeed of the stock of Aaron, Levi, but not of the family of Onias. See? On which account Onias, who was the nephew of Onias that was dead, the one that died, and bore the same name, he held the same name with his father, and came into Egypt, bondage, slavery, Mizraim, and got into the friendship, he got into league of Ptolemy Philometor and Cleopatra his wife, and persuaded them to make him the high priest of that temple which he built to the Most High in the prefecture, the replica of Heliopolis. And this in imitation of that at Jerusalem, a knockoff to what was at Jerusalem. But as for that temple which was built in Egypt, we have spoken of it frequently already. Now, when Joachimus had retained the priesthood 3 years, he died, and there was no one that succeeded him, came after him. But the city continued 7 years without a high priest. But then the prosperity of the sons of Asmoneus, who had the government of the nation, conferred upon them, when they had beaten the Macedonians in war, appointed Jonathan to be their high priest, who ruled over them 7 years. And when he had been slain, killed by the treacherous plan of Trypho, as we have related somewhere, Simon, his brother, took the high priesthood. And when he was destroyed at a feast by the treachery of his own son-in-law, his own son, whose name was Hyrcanus, succeeded him, took his position, after he had held the high priesthood 1 year longer than his brother. This Hyrcanus enjoyed that dignity 30 years, and died an old man, leaving the succession the position to Judas, who was also called Astrobulus, whose brother Alexander was his hire, which Judas died of a sore distemper disease after he had kept the priesthood, together with the royal authority, power. For this Judas was the first that put on his head a diadem, a crown, for 1 year. And when Alexander had been both king and high priest 27 years, he departed this life. He died, and permitted his wife Alexandra to appoint him that should be high priest. So she gave the high priest to Hyrcanus, but retained the kingdom, kept the kingdom herself 9 years, and then she died or left this life. The like duration time, and no longer did her son Hyrcanus enjoy the high priesthood. For after her death, his brother Astrobulus fought against him and beat him and deprived him of his principality. And he did himself both reign, and perform the office of high priest to the Most High. But when he had reigned 3 years and as many months, Pompey came upon him, and not only took the city of Jerusalem by force, but put him and his children in bonds, that means chains, and called or sent them to Rome. He also restored the high priesthood to Hyrcanus and made him governor of the nation, but forbade him to wear a diadem, a crown. He didn't allow him to wear a crown. This Hyrcanus ruled, besides his first 9 years, 24 years more, when Barzapharnes and Pacorus, the general of the Parthians, passed over Euphrates and fought with Hyrcanus, and took him alive, and made Antigonus, the son of Astrobulus, king. And when he had reigned 3 years and 3 months, Sosua and Herod attacked him and took him. And when Antony had him brought to Antioch and slain there, he had him brought there and killed him. Herod, hear that again, Herod was then made king, the Idumean, the Edomite. Herod, that was not an Israelite, was then made king by the Romans. The Romans. But did no longer appoint high priests out of the family of Asmoneus, but made certain men to be so that were of no effeminate families. No eminent families, all right, but barely of those that were priests, excepting that he gave that dignity to Astrobulus. For when he had made this Astrobulus the grandson of that Hyrcanus, who was then taken by the Parthians and had been taken his sister Miriam to wife, he thereby aimed to win the goodwill of the people, who had a kind remembrance of Hyrcanus, his grandfather. But afterward, out of his fear, if they should all bend their inclinations, their minds to Astrobulus, put him to death, and that by planning how to have him suffocated, as he was swimming at Jericho. So he killed him, as we have already related that matter. But after this man, he never entrusted the high priesthood to the children of the sons of Asmoneus. Archelaus also, Herod's son, the Edomite, did like his father in the appointment of the high priest, as did the Romans also, who took the government over the Jews, the Israelites, into their hands afterward. Accordingly, the number of the high priests from the days of Herod the Edomite until the day when Titus took the temple and the city and burnt them were in all 28. The time also that belonged to them was 107 years. Some of these were the political governors of the people under the reign of Herod the Edomite, and under the reign of Archelaus his son, although after their death the government became an aristocracy, and the high priests were entrusted with a dominion over the nation, over the people. And this much may be enough, it says suffice, to be said concerning our high priest. And so you see that it changed hands. All right. It no longer was translated from family to family. All right. It was given to uh, Herod and then, the Romans. All right. When the priesthood was originally translated and settled upon the family of Aaron, that's how it originally supposed to be. Okay. But all of that changed. Okay. Um, and so there's different references. High priest not to be the son of a captive woman. You can go to Antiquities of the Jews 13:10:5. Um, more, it's a lot. It's a lot that you go into that index and let's see. Translated from one family to another. Antiquities 5:11:5. 12:9:7. 13:10:4. 20:10:1. Uh, the high priesthood was vacant at Jerusalem for 4 years. 13:2:3. During a life accepting under Antiochus Epiphanes, Astrobulus, and Herod. 15:3 and 1. Book 15, chapter 3, paragraph 1. Taken from Jesus and given to Simeon by Herod. 15:9:5. Settled upon the family of Aaron originally. Right? And I said the priesthood not to be the son of a captive woman. High priest went into the temple to officiate on Sabbath days, new moons, and festivals. The Antiquities, the Wars of the Jews, book 12, chapter 7, paragraph 3. The high priests were to marry a virgin and not to touch a dead body. Antiquities 3:12 and 2. The high priest desired by Saul to prophesy for him. 6:6:4. High priest with the prophets and Sanhedrin were to determine difficult causes, difficult cases. They sat together. We don't deal with the Talmud, but that's what the Talmud is really built on. Them sitting together trying to figure out what to do about these different cases that they never came up against or with, trying to find solutions. 4:8:14. Several high priests at the same time in latter ages. Um, in the Wars of the Jews 4:3:7, 5:13:1, 6:2:2. High priest to succeed by birth. That's why you got to get your pedigree together. A peon 2:23, elected by a high priest elected by lot among the seditious, the revolters. All right. Those that try to take over or revolt, they were elected by wicked men, right? Or hired by mammon, money. All right. Like it is today, politicians and stuff. Antiquities of the Jews 4:3:8. High priest, they abolished the regular succession. 4:3:6. Herod, the high priest Herod, king of Challis, made the high priest till his death. 21:3. A series of the high priest from Aaron to the destruction of the temple by Titus. 20:10:1. Another series from the building of the temple to the captivity. 10:8:6. High priest robes kept by the Romans. We could read that they kept our garments. Might be some power in our garments. Who knows? It's probably under the Vatican. 21:1. where they where the high priests where they were laid up. 15:11:4, 18:4:3, 21:1. High priest ornaments described. 3:7:4. In the Wars of the Jews also 5:5:7. So I could have went to those places. Didn't really want to go there, but just wanted to share um, that bit of information. Um, maybe I can get that. Let's see. Elected by lot among the seditious. Ain't that something? No, I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it like I had it right there. So that goes back to what I was saying in Ezra, um, about that pedigree. If you wasn't about that pedigree, you weren't to be high priest. And we know that Levitical priesthood, that's over with and all of that. And Yeshaya, he's after the order of Melchizedek, but you know, um, our Lord sprang out of Judah, right? And so, where there was nothing concerned of the priesthood there. So we gotta understand that and think about that. All right, understand that and think about that. Let's get 5:11:5 real quick. Let me get that 5:11:5. 5:11, and I said 5. Let's see. Did I say 5:11:5? Oh, I'm in the wars. That's the wrong part. That's why I'm like, what's going on? Book 5:11:5 and the antiquities, the histories of the Jews. 5:11:5. Let's go over there right quick. 5:11:5. Okay, it says, now Eli was the first of the family of Ithamar, and the other son of Aaron that had the government. For the family of Eleazar officiated as high priest at first, the son still receiving that honor from the father which Eleazar bequeathed, inherited, or given to his son Phinehas, after whom Abiezer his son took the honor and delivered it to his son, whose name was Buki, from whom his son Uzi received it, after whom Eli, of whom we have been speaking, had the priesthood, and so he and his prosperity until the time of Solomon's reign. But then the prosperity, the children of Eleazar, resumed it. All right. Yeah. Let's see what else is going on. 15:9:5. 15:9:5. 15:9:5. Let's see if I can get that real quick. 5. All right. Let's see. 15:9:5. It says, and now, when all Herod's designs, plans had succeeded according to his hopes, he had not the least suspicion that any troubles could arise in his kingdom, because he kept his people obedient, as well by the fear they stood in of him, for he was implacable in the infliction of his punishments, as by the provident care he had shown towards them, after the most magnanimous manner, when they were under their distresses. But still he took care to have external security for his government as a fortress against his subjects, for the orations he made to the cities were very fine and full of kindness, and he cultivated a seasonable good understanding with their governors, and bestowed presents on every one of them, inducing them thereby to be more friendly to him. He gave them bribes, and using his magnificent dispositions, so as his kingdom might be the better secured to him, and this till all his affairs were every way more and more augmented. But then this magnificent temper of his, and that submissive behavior and liberty which he exercised towards Caesar and the most powerful men of Rome, obliged him to transgress the customs of his nation and to set aside many of their laws by building cities after an extravagant manner and erecting temples, not in Judea indeed, for that would not have been borne, it being forbidden for us to pay any honor to images or representations of animals after the manner of the Greeks, but still he did this in the country, properly out of our bounds, and in the cities thereof. The apology which he made to the Jews for these things was this, that all was done not out of his own inclinations, but by the commands and injunctions of others, in order to please Caesar and the Romans, as though he had not the Jewish customs, the traditions, so much in his eyes as he had the honor of those Romans, while yet he had himself entirely in view all the while, and indeed was very ambitious ambitious to leave great monuments of his government to his children, posterity, whenever it was that he was so zealous in building such fine cities and spent such vast sums of money upon them. Mm, mm. Ain't that some stuff? That's that boy Herod when he took over. I'm gonna read the note real quick. Cities thereof. It says, one may here take notice that how tyrannical and extravagant soever Herod were in himself and in his Grecian cities, as to those plays and shows and temples of idolatry mentioned above, and here also yet there's even he introduced very few of them into the city of the Jews, who, as Josephus here notes, would not even then have allowed him. So zealous were they still for many of the laws of Moses, even under so tyrannical of a government as this was of Herod the Great, which tyrannical government puts me naturally in mind of Dean Prideaux's honest reflection upon the like ambition after such tyrannical power in Pompey and Caesar. One of these says he, at the year 60, could not bear an equal, and the other a superior, and through this ambitious humor and thirst after more power in these two men, the whole Roman Empire being divided into two opposite factions, there was produced hereby the most destructive war that ever afflicted it, and the like folly uh, too much reigns in all other places could about 30 men be persuaded to live at home in peace without enterprising upon the rights of each other. For the vainglory of conquest and the enlargement of power, the whole world might be at quiet, but their ambition, their follies, and their humor, leading them constantly to encroaching upon the quarrel with each other, they involve all that are under them in the mischiefs of it, and many thousands are they which yearly die by it, so that it may almost raise a doubt whether the benefit which the world receives from the government be sufficient to amends to make amends for the calamity, disaster, and ruin which it suffers from the follies and maladministrations of those that manage it. Uh, Sounds like what's going on today, right? So yeah, this boy Herod, that was supposed to be, that was a fake a ish person, brought in all kind of pagan and wickedness and was trying to please Caesar and Rome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And so I thought I would share that, how that priesthood was moving around and was no more longer under just Levi and all of that. And the Apocrypha can help you with that as well. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit more on that. Let's see. Let's see. It says a peon. I can't remember where that's at. It's in the back or something. Against the peon. Let's see. 223. Let's see if I can find that. Let's see if I can find that. Um, let's see, 22. So, okay, I'm gonna just read it. Let's see. And would not a man now laugh at this fellow's trifling, or rather hate his impudence in writing this? We must, it seems, take it for granted that all these 110,000 men must have these bullboes. But for certain, if those men had been blind and lame and had all sorts of distemper upon them, as Epion says, they could not have gone one single day's journey, but if they had been all able to travel over a large desert, and besides that to fight and conquer those that opposed them, they had not all of them had buboes in their groins after the 6th day was over. For no such distemper comes naturally and of necessity upon those that travel, but still, when there are many 10,000s in a camp together, they constantly march and settle space in a day. Nor is it at all probable that such a thing should happen by chance. This would be prodigiously absurd to be supposed. However, our admiral author Apion have before told us that they came to Judea in 6 days' time, and again that Moses went up to a mountain that lay between Egypt and Arabia, which was called Sinai, and was concealed there 40 days, and that when he came down from there, he gave the laws to the Jews, the Israelites. But then, how was it possible for them to tarry 40 days in a desert place where there was no water, and at that time to pass over the country between that and Judea in 6 days? And as for the grammatical translation of the word Sabbath, it either contains an instance of his great impudence or gross ignorance. For the word Sabo and Sabbath are widely different from one another, for the word Sabbath in the Jewish language denotes rest from all sorts of work, but the word Sabo, as he affirms, denotes among the Egyptians the malade of a dubo in the groin. Is this it? Because see, I'm not seeing is that the correct one. Oh, must be. Let's see. Yeah. I did read the wrong one. 223. It says there ought also to be put one temple for one power. It says God. Elohim for likeness is the constant foundation of agreement. This temple ought to be common to all men because he is the common God of all men. His priests are to be continually about his worship, over whom he that is the first by his birth is to be their ruler continually. His business must be to offer sacrifice to the Most High, together with those priests that are joined with him, to see that the laws to be observed, to determine controversies, and to punish those that are convicted of injustice. While he that does not submit to him shall be subject to the same punishment, as if he had been guilty of impiety towards the Most High himself. When he offers sacrifice to him, we do it not in order to subvert ourselves or to be drunken, for such excess are against the will of the Most High, and would be an occasion of injury and of luxury, but by keeping ourselves sober, orderly, and ready for our other occupations, and being more temperate than others. And for our duty at the sacrifices themselves, we ought in the first place to pray for the common welfare of all, and after that our own. For we are made for fellowship one with another, and he who prefers the common good before what is peculiar to himself is above all acceptable to the Most High. And let our prayers and supplications be made humbly to the Most High, not so much that we would give us what is good, for he have already given that of his own accord, and have purposed the same publicly to all, as that we may duly receive it, and when we have received it, may preserve it. Now the law has appointed several purifications of our sacrifices, whereby we are cleansed after a funeral, after what sometimes happened to us in bed, and after accompanying with our wives, and upon many other occasions, too long now to set down. And this is our doctrine concerning his worship, and is the same that the law appoints for our practice. All right. Let me see. Yeah, I think that was it on that. Yeah, that was it on that. I don't know if I found it or not. But anyway, that's all I had. All right.